Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
And what is going on, everyone? It is Tuesday night Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m., and you are watching a brand new edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also Nerd Initiative editor-in-chief. To my left, you're right at home. It's in his contract. He does his own intro.
I'm an live and direct straight from the ODPH studios. My name is Off the Cuff Tom, Nerd Initiative pop culture connoisseur. Ken, everybody else, always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And I apologize for all the messages coming in right now, because if you are not ready, you have no other chance, but you have to get ready, because Daredevil Born Again is debuting tonight as we're recording on Disney Plus. And there's a lot of stuff going around with the return of Matt Murdock and company to the MCU. And one of the aspects of this show is going to be a character that you might not be familiar with, but is one of the more recent rogues in Daredevil's gallery that is definitely jumping out from the crowd. And that is the one and only Muse. So for tonight's episode, we're going to be breaking down his origin story of Daredevil Dark Art from Daredevil 10 through 14 from 2016. Soule Ron Garney's run, which is absolutely amazing. If you haven't checked that out, it's one of the best Daredevil runs going on. Chat, super chat, wherever you are checking us out, I want to know, what is your favorite run of Daredevil? Because there's a lot of great stories, and obviously you're going to see a lot of influences happening on the show tonight. But I definitely want to know what's everybody's favorite run, because Daredevil has been such a classic character. And recently, we were talking about this off air, has been one of Marvel's, if not best books.
Agreed.
The best book. And I think with all the talented writers and artists that have came through and really made him stand out in more ways than one. I think that to see his character grow and really get pushed to the limits, and seeing the creativity to go through the vigilante of Hell's Kitchen and like establish him in just his own little world, so to speak.
Yeah,
I think it's been a true testament.
You know, those street level heroes are very much in their own bubble. And when it comes to street level heroes of New York City, Daredevil stands atop all of them.
Yes, absolutely. So that being said, we are going to deep dive into this series. What we'd like to do is give a spoiler-free statement about what we're going to be discussing, give you a little pause, and then we go deep diving. We talk theories, we talk speculation, we talk everything involved in the story. And we are going to be talking a little bit about what we think is going to happen on the show tonight. So that said, Tom, what is your thoughts about Daredevil Dark Art?
Art is subjective.
It is. It is. And especially for where this story comes into play too, a lot of moving parts are happening. Mm-hmm. But I thought for where it needed to establish a truly haunting rogue.
Yes, very good.
That is where I thought they really hit their marks here. And especially to see where this character goes, because issue 10 was a lot of setup for this.
Mm-hmm.
But where it really kind of hits the point is Daredevil is in a new phase back in New York City. He has a sidekick by the name of Blind Spot, who they're still kind of finding their way.
Exactly. And I still think Blind Spot's a little too on the nose, but you know.
But nevertheless, Blind Spot is tipped off to about a location that is in a warehouse in Washington Heights. And on the screen, as we see right now, this is an intense picture when you start getting the breakdown. Tom, you want to talk about this for a sec?
First off, just art for art's sake, I kind of like sometimes when you get this Salvador Dali, this demonic, out there kind of look, and which does not sound like me at one bit. But then when you find out that this particular painting, called, we'll find out eventually, Sanguinity, is made out of 114 people's different blood samples.
Yeah. It's definitely an intense picture when you start breaking it down.
Mm-hmm.
And to see about how this is going, and especially the shock value that's going through the readers as they're watching. Daredevil is very stone-faced about it, because let's face it, he's had to deal with this before. But to see that reaction come through and to go and start breaking it down, and obviously it starts sinking in about what's happening next. Like, that's the true telltale.
I just had a moment, just thought of something. And I don't think they covered this in the book. Matt had to smell all that.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
No.
I know that sounds kind of morose, but it's
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's been around enough death in New York City that I'm sure he's not as shocked as you would, but to know about how much was involved with this,
Yeah.
like that's where it really kind of stands out. So they definitely know that there's a threat there. Obviously, somebody is a serial killer is on the loose, and like how crazy is that? That the way they're going about dealing with their victims, like that's the most sadistic thing. And I think it kind of ties into the psychological aspect of like really driving home what makes this villain stand out, just
Very.
the for where they're trying to find justification for it. But as we jump into issue number 11, we do see that the Inhumans are very prominent throughout this portion of the book. And during this time in Marvel too, we were seeing a lot of Inhuman push in the main books. That obviously the Terrigen Mists had gotten out, new Atlan had been set up. So there's a lot of moving parts happening here. And we do see a mob is ready to attack an Inhuman here. And Tom, when you're kind of watching this unfold, like what is your take?
I feel bad for the dude, like, and at the same time, it's a shame and it's sad, but it's the reality of how things are, regardless of when this is and or was, or we're reading it now for then. Either way, just the fact that okay, the guy has abilities, the guy has powers, guys look different, and yet we still in the Marvel universe, we're still being xenophobic that way. And I get it, but I don't like it.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it just goes to show about like that kind of dark side of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
But you see that in this moment too, Daredevil comes in and makes the save in a very cool manner. But then it shifts back to the art scene.
Yep.
And this is where the painting's going on, and you're seeing an argument about I want to sell this from the owner of the warehouse.
Yeah, and then the fact that they're not sure if they can because the DA, or correct, it was the DA, comes in and is like, no, you can't do this, can't do that. My niece is one of the people who's was captured, so on and so forth. So the dude just figures out, hey, let's just run it as an art gallery and try to make $10 to $20 a pop.
Yeah, so she's a city councilwoman,
but
still comes in and going against the wishes. The owner is still trying to move the building and get that going because they wants to make this money back. All the while, I mean, Daredevil's kind of going through his own motions too, dealing with, let's face it, being a superhero in New York, he does have his complications in dealing with finding time to fight crime in the courtroom and outside of the courtroom.
Yes.
So it's kind of coming back to haunt him. But he gets assigned to this case to go investigate because obviously it's high profile city councilwoman, and he really has to go see what's happening. And when he shows up on the scene, this is where things get very, very awkward because he knows from when he went investigating the night before what's lying beneath. But then when he gets inside, it's a whole different ball of wax, as you see on the screen. Chat, super chat, as you're watching this unfold, knowing what the painting was all about, and then seeing this and the haunting words, this, you're only as good as your last performance. I mean, I'll start with Tom, but I want everybody's reaction. What is going through your mind as you're seeing this play out?
The fact that whoever this artist was, he decides to take all the hard work that they've done into that painting, peculiar as it was, but intense painting, to wipe it away and to just leave a clue. Honest to God, I thought it was out of the Riddler playbook.
Yeah. I mean, I think they just wanted to go about how he was trying to make an artistic moment happen here.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how twisted this character was.
Yep.
So we have to keep that into context as we're watching it play out. And to see how that goes, I mean, it's truly an intense moment as we're trying to see Daredevil is piecing this all together and saying he knows the killer is now going to try making his next victim. And when he goes to find it, oh boy, does he ever find something here. This scene right here, Tom, what is your reaction as we're finding Inhumans are now in this state?
Quite frankly, I'm looking into it a little bit, and I was pushing it almost as like 7 deadly sins. Like you see sloth, you see gluttony, but and I could be wrong, honestly, but it doesn't matter if it's human, inhuman, mutants, homo superiors, whatever. This is still wrong.
Yeah.
I get the fact of art being art for art's sake, but the fact that this is the medium, no. Believe it or not, there used to be a thing down in the Philadelphia Art Museum and talking about the human body. There's literally a guy who went on for 14 minutes and all he did was go, I am making art. I am making art. And he would just keep posing. I am making art. So to see this, it's a visceral thing that takes me back to that weird memory even too.
Oh yeah, no, completely. I mean, it's terrifying to think what the humans have been put through here, and to see the shock value and blind spot and Daredevil just sensing what's going on. And he also knows that someone's lurking in the shadows.
Yep.
So he goes to immediately investigate, and sure enough, we have Muse make his appearance. And he says, "Do you like what I've done?" How much of a mic drop moment is that?
And how cool is that? I mean, you're absolutely right. Muse is probably one of the most harrowing bad guys in Marvel because he does what he does just for the sake of doing what he wants to do with no rhyme or reason.
No, it's just in a I don't want to compare him because it's a whole different level.
Yeah.
But this is what makes the Joker stand
Thank
out.
you. I was thinking the exact same thing.
Because the one thing of when you see a maniacal character like this, there usually is a sense of purpose, like why they do what they do.
Yep.
The Joker is just literally a walking agent of chaos. In this version, Muse is doing this to portray his pain in his art, as messed up as that sounds. But that's his justification. But there's no rhyme or reason, no guilt, no any consequence,
remorse, no nothing.
It's just for the sake of art and his vision, and like how that comes out. I mean, it's very, very intense. But it's also too when you start seeing I'm going to go back to the page and the first one from issue 12, where he's standing there and just basically begging Matt Murdock, "Did you like it?" And you're seeing just what Matt's seeing in his eyes as everything's radiating on there. And that's truly like an intense moment too, because that's literally the way I took it is that's from Matt's point of view. And to see that's got to be troublesome because like you say, he can smell the blood.
Yep.
And just how intense that moment has to be. But then you go right to the next phase where they're having the standoff on the rooftop and it's a little more intense. Matt's trying to take control of everything. And you're just having Muse keep going. "Did you like my work? Did you like this?" And he's like, "You have Inhumans as corpses posing as art.
Yep.
How do you justify that?" He's like, "So you didn't like it? Well, my next one will be better." Like just completely no sells this and then drops the grenade on the rooftop.
What gets me even more is that he caught the damn Billy Club.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to know he has some superhuman abilities.
But what?
Well, that's how they tease it right here, because there's something with him, that there's something that stands out. And I like how they kept it hidden, because if you know everything right away,
you pull the blanket out.
Yeah.
Or the rug out.
And that's something you can't do.
No.
So for here, that he's somewhat of a physical threat to Matt Murdock.
Right.
But he's going at the psychological aspect. And like I say, when you see this moment where he pops the grenade out there, it's really a moment where it throws Matt completely off.
And the fact that it wasn't, it was more along the lines of a flashbang than it was a grenade, because there was no radiating heat off of it, because, he would have been able to tell.
Yeah. So as Matt starts going back to the case, he now sees there's the Royal Inhuman Guard that is now taking over the case. And he has to deal with their detective to try piecing this together. And this is kind of a cool moment that you see how they're trying to tie all this in with Frank McGee, who's the head of the New Atlantis Security. And obviously it shifts gears a little bit. And I like how Charles Soule sets this up, because we go from your standard murder investigation,
right,
to now you're starting to dabble into a political one.
Yes.
Which it's kind of an odd stance, but it works because of where the Inhumans are at this time.
Right.
And we have to say, barring the TV show aside, they still are one of the royal families of the MCU.
And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well.
Yeah. So you have to keep that into context. So when you're seeing now Inhumans have been killed, this is going to draw their attention.
Big time.
And this is where it caused a little sub-conflict, because we're not used to seeing this, where Daredevil now has to work not only with the law, but with Inhuman law. And it really takes him right to the doorstep of Queen Medusa, and how he has history with the Queen from out the years. And when he goes and basically is asking to work together, she can't do this.
Yep.
And so Chad, Super Chad, as you're watching this play out, what's your reaction? But I'll start with you, Tom, as you're watching this, what's your reaction?
Well, I want to go back to when he was at the crime scene, and I love the fact that the guy who's the head of the Atlan, head of security, is anti Daredevil. If you think about it, because Matt can't see, but this dude can take in everything, and then almost have an eidetic memory to the fact he can see things from all angles.
Yeah, because he was hit with the Terrigen Mist.
Yep, I think they call his Inhuman name is Nur.
It's something like that.
Yeah. So I love the fact that they threw that in there. I don't know if we'd ever get a payoff as far as a new character, but then to see, Medusa as queen, ruling over everything. There's, now making a sovereign state, and she's not only a sovereign state, she's making a sovereign statement more than anything, because, everything that's happened with the Terrigen Mists and, the Terrigen scare, I'm going to call it as it is. They can't, I see that they want to try doing good, try to want to do for goodwill, but at the same time, they got to keep their house in line.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah. It's a struggle. It is a struggle, especially with Karnak there, who is serving as the political advisor. And I mean, I definitely hear what Lincoln's saying, because in this moment, she is firing everybody up because of her actions. But, it is a responsibility.
That's a neat idea. That Muse was an Inhuman?
Well, I think that's kind of the general assumption here, too, because of how personal they make this case.
I get it.
And then we go into the action sequence, because Karnak is not hearing this from Daredevil. I love the artwork from Ron Garney here.
So good.
The action sequence is popping off the panel. The lettering, I believe, is Clayton Cowles, just standing out here.
And I like this design of Karnak because, look, for me, it's always been the old Fantastic Four 1990s cartoon with the stupid, big, huge, helmet and everything. So to see that kind of stuff integrated into his tattoos and everything on his face.
Well, they got a massive makeover around the same time of Marvel Knights.
Yep.
So we have to keep that in mind, albeit though that's the same time what Daredevil did with Kevin Smith and Joe Quesada, which that will play a little bit of a factor into the TV show. I'm just my unofficial ODPH guest.
Shut up.
There's a lot of influences. If you listen to the latest episode, you know what I mean.
He broke my heart.
As we see that fight break out, you start getting more of an update about how Medusa is just literally saying, I'd love to help you, but I can't. So then it shifts back to Agent McGee and Daredevil, and he basically says, look, she would love to help you, but this is a political moment.
Exactly. Because
she has to look like she can protect her people. If she can't protect her people, who is going to believe in the royal family?
And that's why I kind of agree with what you and Lincoln are saying, that, Muse might have been Inhuman, because it's not just, I was looking at it just as those who were in the art installment, not putting Muse into that consideration as well. So this is why I like What Do We Do?
Well, that's the argument that you have to have here. Because if you think about how invested they are with the case, because if it's somebody that is able to take out superpowered beings, let alone, like I say, the Inhumans, you have to think there's some connection there. Albeit though, how they were setting it up, and this is something we'll talk about a little later, I thought it was connected to the royal family.
Oh.
Because of how invested they were to protect him.
Agreed.
You think about like the Hollywood scandals, and they have to protect, the family members involved with what's going on. But then we go back to the courtroom, and obviously we have a scene playing out where Muse is in a courtroom, and Blind Spot is there because he's tailing him, and Murdoch is away on New Atlan.
Yep.
And this is really going to throw everything off, and we have to go to the cover of issue 13, which, I mean, let's talk about this.
Come on. Dude, I'm sitting there, I'm eating dinner, I'm looking at this, I darn near spit out my mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
What
this was
a
great cover.
Yeah. Like I say, all the covers they had for this run too.
All the art in general.
Yeah. Just took it up a whole different level. And as we see, the courtroom is just as chaotic as you would think. Daredevil is trying to guide Blind Spot into staying put because he knows he wants to act. But the one thing is, he's relatively new to the crime fighting game.
He's so green. It's not a good idea.
No. And he's saying you're going to be completely outmatched. You're going to be in over your head. And he's right. And the thing is, which we've seen from time and time again, youth versus wisdom. Always in comics, it's a conflict. It makes for great drama, but he's not going to listen because he has to do the right thing in this call too. You have a judge with a knife to the throat.
Right.
What are you going to do? Stand by and let it happen, or try acting and saving a life? it's a struggle, which I mean, Murdoch understands, but he has to try saying, like, you have to make your choice. Meanwhile, Muse is sitting there just taunting everybody in this room, and especially to the point where you see him throw the knife into the bailiff.
Yep.
And it's really setting a high tone about like what's unfolding now, because things get real crazy. He makes the dramatic escape with the judge. Blind Spot now finally can unsuit because everybody's left the courtroom, activates his powers of invisibility, sets off a distraction to make the save, but it doesn't exactly go the right way, would you say, Tom?
No, everything went down in the sewers.
Yeah. So this kind of backfires as Daredevil's making his escape because Muse is still taking the judge away.
Yep.
And this is where that whole experience factor comes into play. Blind Spot doesn't have that. He's doing the right thing, but he's clearly outmatched because Muse has had this figured out. So then when they make the run into the sewers, this is where things get really, really dark. And you start seeing that Blind Spot is chasing him. He's invisible, but Muse is sitting there talking to the people he's kidnapped.
And I love the fact that he says that, oh, this is all the way from the beginning to the end of our justice system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, art for art's sake, I get it. Okay. Psychosis, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Putting them together, genius.
Oh, yeah. No, how Charles Soule set this up, it was brilliant.
Thank you, Charles.
Yeah. And you just see how he's just talking with everybody and being so calm and like, thank you for your participation. Like, and just how creepy the dialogue is as he's sitting there and just trying to really talk about this and saying like, you know, how this is going to make a big deal. He starts attacking some of the victims to get started. And this is where Blind Spot jumps in.
Oh my God. I just had a creepy idea. Like, every time you read Muse, all right, ladies and gentlemen, when you go back to read this after we highly recommend this, hear Muse in your head like Mr. Rogers.
You could. I kind of hear him as William Dafoe.
Ooh.
That's where I hear him. But chat, super chat, who do you think would play him in, you know, as the voice before the show hits? We can throw that out there because obviously we're going to see him on the show as it plays out. But then Blind Spot makes the save, but now he becomes the hunted instead of the hunter. And I love this 2-page splash right here that Garney did. I thought this was just absolutely epic.
I love
him and Melilla.
Yeah, the fact that all the other panels on the other pages were very much straight lines, and the idea that you had to go to this one and it had this flowiness that was going on there. You know, you could consider it as the waves of the water as he's going through the sewers, at the twists and turns that are happening there. You can think of it as his invisibility powers. Like, there are so many ways to try to comprehend this, but to break it up in the middle of the book like that, again, this is damn near a perfect book.
Well, this is what I thought when I was watching this, and this is a testament to the twisted art. It looked like paint strokes.
Okay, yeah, I can see where you come from. A swash
Yep.
of paint. I mean, if they would, I see where you come from. If they would have left maybe like a few little bristle
Sure.
marks or whatnot. But yeah, I get it.
But they want to establish about how things have now changed because Blind Spot has to run, and you just see Muses taunting him the entire way. And he keeps saying, like, I'm a big fan of your work. Like, you know, I'm like, why are you running? Why are you doing this? And to see how this is all playing out too, I'm going to go back to that page too. Like, this is just an intense moment that you just see Blind Spot clearly is outmatched. And you see the rage is still now building up in Muse because he's ruined his picture.
Oh, yeah.
But he disappears on him with his invisibility trick. He winds up going back, freeing everybody that, you know, he saved. And now you hear him go, Muse just screaming in the background, "You belong to me, little man."
Yep.
And seeing how this plays out, that he thinks he can escape him, he tries making the run to the sewer. And this final page that's on the right, how intense is this moment?
Yeah, he knew he messed up and he had to call in backup. Like, what do you do? He did the smart thing. He did the right thing, but he did it the wrong way. And now he's making up for it to be continued.
Well, that's the whole thing about the youthful experience.
Yeah.
Like, it's the question mark that I think all heroes have to go through. I mean, chat, super chat, let me know your thoughts on that moment too. You have to make a judgment call. And especially when you're dealing with someone as deranged as Muse is. Do you let him? You can't sit there and wait for backup to let him kill everybody. And you're going to be completely out of your element, but you have to do something. You have to act. knowing the risks are at hand. And it's something that, I mean, we didn't go into a lot of Blind Spot's backstory, but that's something that he's evolving with in the time.
Yep.
So you see this play out, and it's just tragic in a sense because you know his motives are noble, but he's not Daredevil. He's not ready for this moment.
Nope.
And he has to literally hope he can get a hold of Matt Murdock to do it, but is failing at the same time because he knows he can't get a hold of him while this is all taking place. And just that whole thing where you hear the voice going, call in progress. Just a mic drop moment to build in for the finale of the story. And I love this cover by Dan Panosian. I love this one. It's creepy, it's haunting, it's everything you expect from Muse, and especially how they did the title letters too.
Yeah.
Because it's not your standard font, it's painted.
Mm-hmm.
Just the little stuff they did for this series.
Painted in what?
That's painted in blood.
Okay, just checking.
Oh, absolutely. Like there's no escaping that.
They understood the assignment.
They absolutely did. And to see that come to play, that's what makes it a little more intense as it's going. And now finally, as we see Agent McGee and Daredevil are now on the scene. Is it too late? He's now starting to investigate. Love the use of coloring here for the radar sense.
Oh my God. Was that like how? Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, to pull this off too, especially with the coloring of Matt Malilla, like this is just intense, and it's very cool just the setup because it's the visual thing that adds to this. Because we know obviously Daredevil has a radar sense; you can do it a million and one ways. This really jumped off, and especially how he's honing in to find him.
Yeah, and not only just like in just a general area, like he's literally doing it all across Hell's Kitchen. The way it pulls out, you might think he might be doing it across a good chunk of Manhattan.
Yeah, well, he knows exactly what's there, and especially to go to the 2-page image right here.
Look at that.
And just the pain in Daredevil's face as like the little thing with his nose bleeding because he's pushing himself past his limits.
Yeah, and then some.
Yeah, well, he understands he has to because obviously now there's the personal connection to the case.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he didn't care before, but now knowing this is his fault. And this is something that we've seen with Daredevil from time to time.
You mean immense guilt?
Yes.
No.
Trademark Daredevil.
Never.
And so now he's really stepping up this. And I love this image. Like I say, this is just brilliant artwork all around. Like I say, you can't go wrong with what they're doing here. But he starts seeing the void. He picks up what's going on. Then we get a very eerie shot of where we go to next because now we're at his studio.
His garret.
Yeah. And Tom, talk about this scene.
You know, it's a little cliche if you think about it. You know, hey, I'm an artiste. I live in New York City. I've got this warehouse thing. You know, it's my space where I make all this beautiful art. And then when you look around at his medium and his materials, and it's human bodies.
Yeah. It's everything as grotesque and deranged as you would think.
Mm-hmm.
And it plays well to what Muse is because that, I mean, as essence is his core. He's all about his art, not afraid to go into that level. And he's literally trying to justify himself. And that's something he does with every victim too. He's trying to justify why he's doing what he's doing. And it's really just off. And like he starts explaining about like, you know, his first time doing this and what he should have done. And like I say, he has this whole long monologue. And his justification, like I say, is just as deranged as he is, but it plays into his character very well. So finally, we do see Daredevil tracks him down after we get a very long view of his current painting that he's working on. I did not put it up on the screen, but it is one that,
yeah.
I mean, you obviously you can tell by where we're going with it. We didn't want to show it for a reason.
It's NSFW, folks.
Yeah. So Daredevil now finally comes in to make the save. And we do see a panel, and I did cut off the top of it in the middle, where Muse reacts and gouges out Blind Spot's eyes.
Yeah, it's a lot. It really is. And then, like I said, you know, I think Blind Spots is a little too on the nose, and not knowing this character coming into this to see this happen, I'm like, oh man, that was foreshadowing.
Yeah. But this is where, like I say, you get this thing that he wants to make that point because now he's taken the attack of Daredevil personally.
Mm-hmm.
And you just see the rage in Daredevil's face
Oh
on the
my
right
God.
side, which I loved how they brought that out.
Oh,
Like,
I loved in the first page on the left. We were saying this before we got on. Just those 3 onomatopoeias right
Mhm.
there, the and the just the lettering. That was smart. That gave the sound. That gave the feeling. That gave all that the reaction behind it. So kudos to that. Like that was so smart. It was so damn well. Yeah. Okay. We like this book.
yeah. That's the easy way to describe it. And so then as you see, Muse throws Blind Spot away to make his getaway. I love the coloring sequence here with the panels too,
Mm-hmm.
because you see Daredevil knows like he now has to go take out Muse. Win, lose, or draw, like this has to end here.
Yep.
And there's that moment of urgency that I think they really captured with the art as they're running by. So we do see the radar senses being used well. We're seeing the fight go on. I love the shift of colors. And I would say the only thing with this that really kind of stood out, it definitely seemed very quick.
I think it seemed quick, but I'm looking at it this way, that the reason that it was so quick is that Daredevil realized that he had such a limited window
Mhm.
and he was so focused that's also, and this is just my opinion, that's why there's so much black, because if you look at that, the only thing you see in that is Muse. You don't see the walls. You don't see this. You don't see that. You just see Muse. You see the Billy Club go down, thwap right on the cerebellum, and down he goes.
Yeah.
So that's where I got out of the art for that one.
No, definitely. I mean, it stood out. I mean, it's just showing about how dark it's going in. And it's almost like challenging how dark he's going into the soul of Muse to try finding, some way to defeat him.
Or even himself, if you think about it.
Well, yeah, because there's always that lingering guilt that haunts him. But as he's thrown through the wall, he walks into another part of his studio, and this scene just,
I can give you 114 reasons why this is a rough read in a good way.
Yeah. Like this is where he's keeping all the victims he's killed.
And that he's using paint cans, like legit paint cans, not like, hey, I'm going to go to Home Depot. It's again, just smart.
Yeah.
I'm an artist. I should have paint cans.
Yeah. And you're just seeing that Muse is trying to justify, well, they're immortal now. We've done everything we need to, like they'll live forever. And it's just that twisted psyche that's coming into play. And it's just, so terrifying.
I like it.
But like it makes him compelling.
Indeed.
But then we go right to the close where he is now trapped because the New Atlan army or police force is there waiting for him. And then you see how they confront him, and he is just sitting there going, well, I'll just take myself out of the equation. He breaks his own fingers. I mean, he took away, like he's basically was trying to self-punish himself. And just shows how you can mess. And they're basically like, well, he wants to go see him. And then when you take the mask off, we get the reveal. He's a man in the mask.
Yeah, that's a lot. And we were talking about this beforehand. And then again, how Lincoln, suggested that it's a lot. And the other thing is too, the idea that he broke his own hands. Did he make his art or break his art? Because even just, how he uses the human body to twist and writhe into things was the intention of him breaking his hands to make another form of art.
I think he want to make himself the last picture.
Yep.
That's what he wanted to do.
The living embodiment.
Yeah.
Of himself.
You want to say like, I'm not better than anybody else. I can never do this again.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we all know is nonsense. And then you see that obviously he's getting the assurance from the New Atlan police that, he won't get away with this. And then literally it comes down to, him now going to check on Blind Spot, who's going to get medical attention from the Inhuman Science. So you think that there's, maybe a silver lining here. And you see, obviously, Daredevil is apologizing for everything that's gone on in this moment. And only thing Sam can ask him is, did you save them? He's like, yeah. More than 100 people. And then you get that final shot.
Wow.
And just literally this image. And he goes, I guess it was worth it then.
Mm-hmm.
End of story. So there is a lot to break down from this as we walk through it.
Yeah.
So we were talking about a lot of the good things we liked, but as we always do here on Turner Page, when we do a book breakdown, we talk the good, we talk the bad, and we talk the, I don't know. So Tom, what was any points you really did not like about this?
I think sometimes the speed and pacing, this could have possibly gone maybe 1 or 2 more issues. I think we could have drawn it out. I think we could have got more Muse's backstory. I would love to. Now you're right. If we throw everything out at the beginning, okay, maybe not. Maybe if we had a third art installment, maybe if we had a little bit more of a chase scene, there's just little things that could have opened this up. But knowing Charles Soule and knowing how, his style, I get it. It makes sense. That's the only downside I really have out of this book.
Yeah, this book, I mean, like I say, creative team absolutely crushed on that. So definitely want to give them another shout out here. This book had maybe just one element that I thought really took away from it, but I understand for the time it was in. The amount of time that was devoted to Matt Murdock being at the Inhuman Royal Council.
See, and I also think that, now that you think about it being somewhere, that whole thing with Matt, skipping out work.
Yeah. I think when they devoted just like a whole issue there for the most part, I think that could have been done in a lot shorter time span.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think it needed as much time devoted to it as well, even though it did the right thing in its setup. Right. So like I say, it's not anything I say is like, oh my gosh, this threw me off completely. But to think about how it was set up, and especially with Muse, which we had an idea of what he was about, but that was the biggest thing about keeping everybody guessing. And just how I decipher it is like he had to have some connection to the royal family, or why they were being so protective about not letting anybody come after him.
Well, and not only that, but Inhumans themselves are very much, xenophobic in their own way. They want to keep everything in-house, even if it's not just the royal family. Like, oh, you have Inhuman gene, you're now one of us. It don't matter. You're being, come to the mothership.
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand, but I like how they threw that political aspect in,
Mm-hmm.
Because that is something in dealing with the royal family of the MCU, if you will. It makes a lot of sense. So like I say, I wasn't mad about that by any stretch. I just thought we spent too much time on it, where we could have maybe divulged a little more into Muse.
Agreed. Here's another question. At this point, does Medusa or any of the Inhumans, the royal family, or just Inhumans, know that Matt and Daredevil are the same person?
I don't believe so.
And do you think Karnak probably figured it out since he started to figure out his weakness and put the 2 and 2?
I fully do. I think the fact he kept name dropping Matt Murdock. Yeah, I think Karnak picks up on a lot more. Like I say, he's one of the more interesting characters of the Inhuman family.
Agreed.
So I think that there's probably some kind of interjection with that. But I think for where we got, I thought it made a lot of sense. I thought it was a great story to be about as intense as it was going. I see Lincoln's in the chat. I feel this could have gone 8 to 10 issues. Muse was wasted, in my opinion. We should have got backstory on Muse, like how he became who he was. Well, I think for this point, we didn't need one per se. I think we should get one though, maybe. And I think that recently he's came back in the comics. So I think we're going to start dabbling a little more into it. Mm-hmm. But I think that little aspect of mystery here left it wide open if we want to return to him. I think it was just a one and done.
And it doesn't leave everything as black and white, as good guy and as bad guy. Now, don't get me wrong. We understand Muse is twisted and psychotic, and that's, it is what it is. But you don't always need to have to balance out. It's like, oh, I know all this about Matt Murdock and nothing about Muse. Leave the mystery there.
Yeah. But I understand what Lincoln's saying too, because we have alluded to this as well. If we knew a little bit more about how he got his powers per se, or like what made him exactly how he was, I think that would have helped a little more. So I have to agree with that. Like I said, I don't want the full backstory, but I want just enough. Where this had just enough for me, that the more it got twisted, it was just kind of seeing about where his sense was going. And maybe they were thinking about coming back to him and just didn't kind of pan out. Sometimes that happens in the comics. But I think for where they needed to go, I thought they really told a very mature story. I think they didn't hold anything back about how gruesome and grotesque it got. Because if you're going to do something like Muse, you have to go all in. You can't sit there and try PGing it.
No.
Otherwise, I don't think the character would have worked. And I think for a character like Daredevil, that's the perfect one it could come into. You could argue Punisher, but it would have been one and done.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't exactly know how he would have survived. Albeit, though, that would have been a fun dynamic with the royal family. That would have been some fun, I will say. Like, just see the clash of styles there. But I think for where they wanted to go with this, it was a great introduction of a new rogue. And you're now going to see this rogue show up on Daredevil Born Again. And I think it's a very cool move by the creative team of the show.
Yep.
To bring in a character like this, which fits that whole Netflix / or Disney Plus feel that they want to give that mature audience.
Yep, very much.
And I think it's going to be nothing but a big bucket of win there. So I think we have to kind of keep that in mind as we're moving forward with the show, that we're going to see a lot of influences from some of the great Daredevil stories that are throughout time. And like I say, we talked a little bit about on the latest ODPH, a few spoilers that we might be thinking that are going to happen.
The locks and leaps.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I think I'll throw it out to the chat, super chat. I know we're only a few minutes away from the show debuting on Disney Plus, but throw your guesses in. What do you think is going to happen on Daredevil Born Again on the TV show? So Tom, I'll start with you. Is there anything that you're hoping you see?
I really want to see, like I said on the podcast, I want to see Karen was the only one left from the relative Daredevil family during the blip. That she has so much codependency that not having anybody there to lean on, I would really love to see how far down she goes.
All right, chat, super chat. Definitely throw your picks in for what you're expecting for this series. For me, I think I want to see him really follow the source material to a degree. I think with this book, there's a lot that they're going to influence with. I don't think we're going to see Inhumans involved, which is fine because I think you're just going to see, unfortunately, a serial killer run around Hell's Kitchen.
And you're talking this story, not the other ones, right?
No, well, no. I fully think we're going to have an influence of Kevin Smith and Joe Quesada's Guardian Devil story. More importantly, I think you're going to see Bullseye kill Karen Page.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean that's my guess on it. I think the Punisher at this time too. I think this is why the Punisher comes back to the show because I think he's looking for Karen's killer. During this time in the comics, I honestly don't know where he is, because I think at this point they're really leaning into the Max line.
Oh yeah. What? Speaking of which, about timeline, there was a $10 bill showing up in when he was having coffee with Foggy, right? And me being me, I'm like, why the hell are they using a pre-2006 $10 bill?
2016, man. Different time.
But the new dollar bill started rolling out in 2006. Why?
Matt probably saves his money.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's me being silly.
No, it definitely is. But like I say, there's going to be a lot to talk about on that show. So definitely going to be following Nerd Initiative to make sure you're doing that. But we have to give a grade on this. So chat, super chat, if you've read this story, out of 10, what do you grade Daredevil Dark Art? I'll pass the mic over to Tom. Tom, what's your grade?
It's an easy 9 out of 10. Like I said, the only thing that, I would have liked is maybe an issue or more. The art was fantastic. The first few panels that you saw, Matt, and all you really got for color was the Billy Club and, his walking cane. That was awesome. Again, the lettering, especially when it came to those action sequences, it matched what you wanted to hear. I mean, it was the perfect onomatopoeia. Like if I go, it better be drippy wet. Kind of idea. It was great. The stippling. I love the fact that we got old school comic book stippling, like it, like it used to be. But then on the flip, like the blacks were black. The silvers were silver, or the grays were grays. But just the fun part of putting old school style, like it's just, it's a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I have to agree. My grade for this is a 9 out of 10 as well.
Wow, we agree for once.
Yeah, which is a rarity if you're a longtime watcher of the show.
Yep.
I think what Soule Ron Garney did here was they wanted to establish, anytime you have a creative team come on, they usually try having a new character come in that really shakes things up. And I think with the creation of Muse, I think that's what they did. And I think they really hit a home run with it.
Agreed.
Because you didn't get your typical Kingpin villain. You didn't get one that was really calculated in that sense. It was one that was just thriving off the insanity of his own art. And I think that seeing how that clashed with Daredevil and a young sidekick that really pushed Daredevil to his brink of, fully snapping and crossing a line. Because when you have to walk that line that he does, and especially with the amount of guilt he carries with everybody, it's really something that under the wrong move, he could snap and become the Punisher. Much like we talk about Batman and Joker.
It's one bad day.
Exactly. And I think that they really established that with this run. And I think just how they worded in a murder mystery with a political thriller to a degree.
A skosh.
But juggled around enough that it made sense. It didn't take anything out. And I think the art of Ron Garney just absolutely just took this to a whole different level. It was one that it felt different reading. It didn't feel like everything I've just seen with a normal bad guy of the week. And I think of the takes they did with Muse, I agree. I think I would have liked to have seen more play out and more jump in to kind of connect with me more of like, okay, what's his reason behind it other than he's just crazy. But I think that will also leave some doors open to come back and see this character. And I know it's popped in a couple times. And I said recently, I believe it's back in the comics as well, in one of the Daredevil series right now. So that said, to have that impact and now to see the transition to pop culture and to live action too, that's a testament to how much this book works and how much that story is going to connect with the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw Lincoln as his picks in the chat too. His grade 9 out of 10.
Hey.
So throw that up on screen here quick. So, just wanted more out of Muse. He's a short-lived villain, made a huge impact for a short amount of time. I agree. But that's why I think you're seeing now, after the show, I think we're going to see Muse pop up more.
And on top of that, like, how many Daredevil villains are there that, most people know or have some familiarity with? It's a better idea at this point to just throw in, we've got Kingpin. We've got, and then what is synonymous with Daredevil? Kingpin.
Yeah.
Elektra. That's it. The general public, can they name off a third character in Daredevil?
Bullseye.
Okay, fourth.
No, fourth you can't.
Exactly.
No, the Daredevil has a very small rogues gallery in comparison. Like there's some, if you read the comics, Typhoid Mary, Jester, Owl.
Mm-hmm.
That those are ones that stand out. Stiltman, who I think Matthew Lillard is going to be playing.
Catholic guilt.
Yeah, you're going to see those characters pop up. But the one thing is with Daredevil is he's so street grounded.
Yep,
it's tough to give him a real rogues gallery in that sense, because there has to be a little bit of a superhero element. Because obviously you benchmark him against Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, two different characters, two different setups. But I'm saying when you have characters that really connect on this level, it definitely helps make your hero better. Gladiator too, I forgot about him. Thank you, Lincoln.
Yep.
Yeah, but you have to think about those early runs before Frank Miller took over. Yeah, there were a lot more superhero, super villain-esque things going on. I think when Frank Miller's take took over, it really gave that grittiness, that darkness, the grounding that really makes this character stand out.
Agreed.
And as you've seen now through many runs, the Mark Waid and Chris Samney, the Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Malev, to name a few, like I could literally spend all night talking about the runs of Daredevil. To really see this character jump out and pop out the way it should, you have to really challenge him on a moral level and on a psychological level. When you do that with great characters like Kingpin and Bullseye, you're going to nail the mark every time, no pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're going to bring a new one into the phase, you have to do the same thing. And I really think they did that here with Muse. So that said, when you're out of the comic shops this week, make sure to go check out Daredevil Dark Art. You definitely want to go check the story out, along with a lot of other great books that are going to be happening. And if you're not familiar with nobody does New Comic Book Day quite like Nerd Initiative.
No one.
So that said, we've got 30 reviews dropping starting at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I know we don't have any graphics, but any quick plugs you want to throw out there?
It's the terror that flaps in the night. He's the one that finally hits the comic book shelf. He's Darkwing Duck.
Yep. Dynamite has a loaded lineup of books coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, Hercules as well is finally coming out. Space Ghost. I know, aren't they doing some sort of down the run, or is that tomorrow or down the run of Space Ghost and Johnny Quest?
There's something's on the way with that.
Space Quest, and also a big shout out the voice actor who did Space Ghost,
yes,
just recently passed as well. So rest in power to him, and we were thinking about his family as well.
Yeah. Speaking of Space Ghost, we might be having a guest swinging through again in the upcoming weeks.
I get a week off, huh?
To talk about that. Well, you never know. We don't take weeks off here. That's what we do. Obviously, for me, there's a lot of great stuff from DC. The X-Men have a big crossover event kicking off at Marvel. Super chat, throw your picks on what you're picking up this week. DC, like I say, they have a lot of books that are coming out with the fallout from Absolute Power, that great event from 2024. So you definitely want to go check that out. Image Comics has got some great stuff coming out. Boom Studio. No matter where you go in the comic shops, right now is such a time to really embrace the diversity that you're seeing at the shelves, because there's literally something for everybody.
What a time to be alive. Got to do my Kevin Smith. Been a while.
Indeed. And like I said, if you need those recommendations, Nerd Initiative has got you covered, because like I say, nobody does it quite like Nerd Initiative for New Comic Book Day. And we just kind of leave you with a parting shot. Make sure to check out the website too, because if your fandom is, let's say you're a fandom of pro wrestling, there's stuff there for you. Fandom of movies, TV, boom, we got you there. Collectibles, because Play for Keeps, obviously every Monday night on here on Nerd Initiative. YouTube, you want to make sure you check that out. We've got a lot of stuff happening, but it all comes right to the website. It'll take you every place you need to go. But more importantly, too, wherever you're watching us in the world, and we do thank you for that, make sure you subscribe to Nerd Initiative on YouTube. There is exclusive content that is on the site right now, such as Rich and Sam's breakdown of Elimination Chamber this past week. So pro wrestling fans, if you want to find out what happened there, definitely go over there. That's the only spot you're going to find out about their takes about what went down involving one John Cena. So there's a lot to discuss there. Plus, there's exclusive interviews that are only showing up there. So you definitely want to make sure you go check that out. And we have a lot more stuff because coming strictly for YouTube. So you want to make sure you hit that subscribe button, tap the bell notification so you don't miss a minute it happens, and definitely throw a thumbs up on it to let the GEO know that you love the content you're seeing here at the home of pop culture positivity. So that said, thank you as always for listening and watching a new edition of Turn a Page. For myself and Tom, we'll end it like we always do. When you're at the comic shops and you have a great issue in your hands, such as Daredevil Dark Arts, Daredevil 10 through 14 from Marvel Comics, and you see somebody struggling to find something, hand yours off to them. Tell them to turn a page. We'll see you next week.
I'm out.